Hello, friends. Chris McMillon here. Another interview for Autonomy Season 1. I'm here with Kurt Bivens.
Hello, everybody.
Wow. Good, Kurt. What's going on in Virginia? Any news?
It's very warm today. Um, I'm in the upstairs office, so it's a bit sweaty. That's all right.
So you're from Nebraska. How would you compare Nebraska and Virginia?
Uh, where I'm from in Nebraska, it's monoculture, uh, industrial ag, so flattened and one plant, and very rural. So I grew up in a town of 1,000 people, so I got pretty good at entertaining myself until I discovered the internet.
Yeah. Um, just how old are you? How old are you? What generation are you?
Yeah, I
20?
would be a millennial. I turned 31 on Easter, so
Really? I thought you were like 25 or something.
nope, starting to get a little bit of age on me now.
So you all through high school then you had internet.
I got my first computer when my cousins were living with us. My uncle was in the military and went to Korea, so my two cousins and my aunt came and lived with us, and they bought a computer. And it was even probably a while after we had the computer that we got internet. And then from then on, it was nonstop. So that was probably uh, junior high.
I I just I didn't get internet. I didn't even get an email until my second year in college. So from as long as I can remember to be able to just go to a search engine and plug in anything I'm curious about, it just blows my mind to be able to do that. So what do you think? Has it been an advantage, the younger generation over the one just before you who didn't have access to that, or was it detrimental?
Uh, so obviously in autonomy, we talk a lot about assets and liabilities, and I a lot used it as a liability. But I was talking with my wife earlier today, and a concept just kind of popped in my brain. I don't know if it was original to me or not, but I was like, what about an internet librarian, like a person who can point people in the direction of good content and cut through the signal because there's so much noise, or cut to the signal because there's so much noise out there. This is something that Richard talks about a lot. I don't know. It's just an interesting concept that
Very
came to me.
interesting concept. An internet librarian. Very interesting. Yeah, maybe there's something in the development there. Yeah.
I think it might be, yeah.
So, Kurt, you joined the military. Tell us about that and why you got out and anything
Yeah.
you want to say about that.
So in my small, very small town, 1,000 people, I had a job at a grocery store. I worked there on and off my whole school career. Uh, I did not have a good time in high school. I ended up dropping out, but my my influences convinced me to go back and get my diploma because they thought it was very important. Obviously, now we have more knowledge, but so I was working this job at the grocery store and kind of got myself in a situation where I saw a glass ceiling, didn't see opportunity to move up. I also my father was in the Marine Corps, so it seemed like a family thing, things that just get passed down without knowledge or without knowing that you're passing it down. And my dad and I are mostly on the same age now, so it's pretty great. But I spent 4 years from when I was 22 to when I was 26 in the military, and I was a tank mechanic. So I got to turn some wrenches, and I got to really enjoy and learn troubleshooting and how to fix things.
That's great. So you just did your 4 years, and after that, you said, "What? How's it work? Your contract's up, and you have a choice to continue or get out." Is that how it works?
Yeah. So Total, it's an 8-year obligation, but 4 years if you're active duty. I was 4 years active duty and then 4 years in active reserves. So they don't bug me as long as nothing happens. And I just finished that time about a year ago.
Okay. So would you ever go back in?
So while I was in, I started to discover a lot of information. Uh, I was into Ron Paul actually in 2008. This was before I actually got out of high school. And then, being a 20-year-old, you get involved in other things,
Yep.
drinking and partying. So then I got myself on that dead end and saw the military as an escape. But while I was in, I had the means to gather more information. At this time, WikiLeaks videos and stuff like that was coming out. So that opened my eyes quite a bit, and it made me know what I wanted to. It made me know that what I was doing was not what I was being sold. So I had to figure it out, and it was my responsibility to do so.
Very good. So how were you recruited? Was it your family or was it recruiters that came to your school?
To be honest, kind of sad. I was just running away from a situation, and I saw it as an escape.
Okay.
So, and I went to the office. So,
and you got a year in Korea, didn't you?
Yeah, my first year. So when I was getting out of training, I had met Sam before I left for the Army, but I had already signed, so I felt obligated. Then met Sam, so her and I got married after my training, and yeah, I got sent to Korea, and I was at Camp Casey, which is about 25 miles from the demilitarized zone. I had the opportunity to go tour the demilitarized zone, which was a very strange and eerie feeling. Just these people staring at each other. And Sam got to enjoy her time over there. She went and did a lot of sightseeing, climbed a mountain, and visited a temple, which I didn't go with her on that one. She really enjoyed visiting another culture, and I did as well, but I got to enjoy it a little bit less because I was doing that thing.
And while you were in the military, the issues that are relevant today, there's a bigger picture going on that's, you know what I mean? There's a reality of the way things are versus the way that the public indoctrination systems and the media want us to perceive things. Were you aware of these issues while you were still active, or was it a slow process? Do you know what I mean? What happened that made you fully aware of that? Hold on, that everything's connected and nothing is as we're supposed to believe.
There was definitely a lot of cognitive dissonance for a while. I had to work through that myself because they play on the protectiveness of people. They say you're protecting things, and it's not necessarily true. So you slowly learn, and I eventually came to the realization, it's oh, if there was an occupying force near me, would I resist it? And it was obvious to me at that time. So, okay, these people are just trying to assert their self-ownership and not, be oppressed. So I come to terms with my deployment. If anything bad were to happen, it would be my fault and not theirs. So that was really the solidifying moment when I knew what I was doing was not correct. So I knew that I felt obligated to exactly.
We are responsible for our own actions.
So, and I was in this situation that was very tough because I felt obligated to the contract that I signed. but also like I was tricked into it. So I had to finish that and move on.
Luckily, you were never put into a situation where you had to do something immoral, at least. Yeah.
I couldn't
But yeah,
necessarily say that.
it's on anyway. I'm not asking you. I'm just, I mean, you were in Korea, so I mean, there wasn't a whole
That,
lot of action going on there, was there?
so that yeah, that was my first year. But when after there, we went to Colorado, and from Colorado, I deployed to was in Kuwait, and then spent about 8 months there, moved around to various countries in the Middle East doing various missions. The worst that I could ever say that I was ever a part of was like limiting people's movement between countries. And you never know what happens when you do stuff like this. Like after those people leave your site, it's like they're ghosts in your world.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize you had been over there to the Middle East as well. Did Sam go with you during that time?
Nope, she stayed in Colorado. She was in college at this time, further indoctrination when I was in my indoctrination.
Um, it's hindsight is 2020 though. It's fantastic that you're able to look back and see clearly what was going on, and you can cross-reference with how you were feeling and thinking at the time with what you know now. I do that quite a bit, and it's a learning process that never ends at all.
It's liberating to know that everybody's been in a situation like that before. So you can only get so mad at somebody for not knowing.
Yeah, yeah. It's just the principle of non-aggression. That's the constant theme. That is the one constant. Just follow the principle of non-aggression. It's true that sometimes there are disagreements in the details, in the finer print, in any kind of a widespread way of looking at something. Do you know what I mean? But the principle of
Absolutely.
non-aggression, and the right to self-defense. That's it. Live and let live. That's what it all comes down to. How did you get to Autonomy? How did you come to get in touch with Tragedy and Hope? What was the kind of the process that led you to here?
So after I got out of the military, moved back to Nebraska to a slightly different town, 50 miles away from my hometown. I was trying to go to college, and I wrecked a motorcycle. So I was laid up for about 2 months. This was my first ever broken bones. And I discovered a bunch of YouTube creators. And one of the guys was the guy that drew me out here to Virginia. But so I went on down the rabbit hole in that way. James Corbett was a huge influence. And I think he was the one I discovered Richard Grove through. And also I discovered Brett Veinotte through him. But so I was huge into James Corbett for a few years, then listened to a tiny bit of Richard's work, and then got huge into the School Sucks podcast, went through all of that, discovered the Trivium. Then from the Trivium, I got on Tragedy and Hope. And then ever since then, I started from episode 1 of Peace Revolution. And I had a job where all I did was for 8 hours walk around, and then once in a while jump on a forklift. So I just 8 hours a day listen to podcasts.
Cool.
And that one was the best because they were nice and long.
Yeah. James Corbett Report, School Sucks Project, the Peace Revolution podcast. As far as I'm concerned, everything revolving around the information that's provided by those websites and the ideas of the principle of non-aggression and the historical route they take, uncovering the history that we were denied, that are, the winners write the history. But, these guys work so hard to get real information, down to the base. I was impressed with John Taylor Gatto, how he had to, was at Harvard University, he had to ring up about that lecturer he wanted And at first they denied that the guy existed. Then finally they called him back and said, "Hey, what's going on? What's your interest in this guy?" And finally, John Taylor Gatto found the original archives. Stories like that. That's what it's all about. Before you got into, I don't know. I mean, I hate to call it anything. I guess you could call it the voluntarist/libertarian kind of, point of view. What were you before that? Would you say you were more right wing, left wing? Like I was definitely left wing route. I was a big follower of Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky, who I still admire their work, but I also can take it with a bit, more of a criticism. And I was a big follower of Abby Martin, whose work I also love when she takes on the corporations. But now I know their collectivist ideas are very dangerous, and it comes from that philosophy that starts with Plato's Republic. And at the end of the day, nobody has the right to rule over others. It's that simple. Sorry, but I'm rambling on a bit. Did you have one or the other before all that?
I would say I would have leaned probably Republican, not even conservative necessarily. That was what my parents would have been. But that was how I discovered Ron Paul. And I was only 17 at the time, so I didn't necessarily understand the full weight of the message, but he did talk a little bit about economics and things like this that started to get me more to really understand the principles of limited government. The more you let it intervene, the more you get externalities, negative effects, bad incentives. So that really woke me up to even bad ideas on the quote unquote conservative side. But
yeah, it's great being in the middle, because we now clearly do not belong to the right or the left, because they are both, as far as I'm concerned, they're both equally the same kind of scumbags. That's a bit harsh, but because at the end of the day, they believe that people have the right to rule over others. That's what it comes down to. Very interesting. Someone else I mentioned that was Naomi Klein. I really like. Have you read The Shock Doctrine? Do you remember that book?
no, I haven't.
I actually would still recommend it, even though she's a massive collectivist. But historically, she does a fantastic job of unrooting the American government's meddling in Latin American affairs, how they install dictators, which is very essential history for anyone. I would still recommend her book, but yeah, with a pinch of salt.
Right.
Yeah, very interesting, the development of everything. Well, how are you finding Autonomy now?
Man, I have grown. So I've been working on my personal growth for quite a while, but it has really catalyzed it to levels I couldn't imagine. It's like my wife and I are communicating on different levels. I'm able to do things that I didn't think I never had the courage to do. I've always wanted to actually get into video making, so I'm really focusing in on trying to get that put together. Man, I can't see anything but endless opportunity now. It's pretty great. Just demolished the scarcity mindset for sure.
That's great. Have you read The Most Dangerous Superstition? Do you know that one?
Yes, I have listened. Yeah, I listen to it. I do most of my books audio form because I drive so much.
Yeah, cool. That same here. Most of my Peace Revolution days, Corbett Report days were in the car. I did a lot of driving around Spain a few years ago, and it's fantastic. It's great stuff. What is your current, like right now with the Autonomy class, what are you working on? What's your biggest challenge in front of you right now?
So Sam recently left her job at Target, and so she was trying to rewrite her resume. But I told her, and with a lot of feedback from the course, it's like, maybe resume is not the way to go. So she's gonna start working on opening on her own sort of business. So I'm really trying to help her get paperwork and everything like that in order. And try to get her a website. We have a friend that builds websites, so he's getting her a website stood up and trying to focus on that quite a bit. Pretty excited.
That's great. I'm kind of at the same area now. I mean, I've been so busy doing interviews, but at the same time, I need to focus on my own website to get, my English courses online. Um, yeah, so we're kind of at the same stage. And how great is it knowing that we can just reference our notes in the past slides and lectures, and it's all there. Anything to do with digital marketing, marketing funnels, platform, landing pages, digital assets. Everything is there laid out for us, plus the support that we get in Discord, whether it's technical, copywriting, whatever. It's just, it does definitely builds confidence, the support we get.
I was gonna add like the instant feedback. If something's not 100% clear in your head, you can just post in the chat, and within, at the most 20 minutes, you'll have probably 3 sets of feedback on things to improve or things that are good. It's incredible.
I'll give you an example of that. I'm really financially stupid, and because it's my own fault, but also because the system, you know what I mean?
Right. That's
now
the status quo.
This was intentional, but of course, at the end of the day, it is my fault. But I put a shout out for help in the Discord. I said, look, I cannot get my head around stocks, bonds, hedge funds, mutual funds. And finally, and that instigated Mark Soar. He helped me out a lot, and that I said, Mark, this is brilliant. You need to make a presentation out of this. And he did, and that was available to the group, and he did a brilliant financial presentation. This is one example of many of people reaching out for help, and it leads to nothing but value-added content, productivity. So, yeah. Looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks then.
Yes, we're going to be up at Red Pill. It's about an 8-hour drive for us, so we're going to take off Thursday mid-afternoon.
Are you going to paint flowers on the side of the van and,
Well, it's a rental, so probably not. They wouldn't approve.
Call it, just spray paint the Autonomy mobile or something, yeah?
That'd be pretty great.
Cool. Well, Kurt, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I just want to say thanks for your time, Chris. This has been incredible, and I really appreciate the work that you've been doing. I get to know a lot of the other members by just watching the interviews that you do with them, and that's great. So thank you much.
No problem. There's one member you might find a special interest in who I just interviewed. Her name's Sam, so you'll have to check that one out.
I don't know. It might be boring.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, Kurt.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.